Welcome to Pennsylvania Newsmakers. I'm Gene Barr, your host for this week's program. Well, today we're going to talk a little bit about your electricity bill, your water bill, a couple other things, as well as how you might find some unclaimed property and how you might help finance your child or grandchild's college education. And we'll kick that off here in a moment.
Welcome to the fast-paced and unrehearsed weekly discussion featuring the leaders who help shape your world. Join us as we address the issues that impact you each and every day. This is Pennsylvania Newsmakers. And now, here's your host.
Welcome back to Pennsylvania Newsmakers. My first guest here today is Chairman of the Public Utility Commission, Steve DeFrank. Chairman DeFrank, thanks for being with us here today.
Great to join you today, Gene. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so how long have you been chair at the commission now?
So I became chair in August of 2023. I was appointed by Governor Josh Shapiro. I've been on the commission since October of 22.
Okay, so tell us a little bit about your background. Where were you before? I know you've been in state government for a while before that too. So what's your background?
So my background is mostly with the state Senate. I worked there as staff 25 years. Most recently as Oversight Committee Director for regulated utilities. And then in 2017, I left the Senate and was a principal at Buchanan, Ingersoll and Rooney government relations shop there. And then in 22, I went on to the commission.
Oh, so a lot of good background for this, so that's good. So
absolutely.
I know when people hear PUC, I think they know that you guys regulate their electricity and maybe some other things, but I don't think anyone understands the full scope of what the Public Utility Commission is involved in. Yes, it's electric, it's water, but it's telecommunications, it's transportation. You guys get into all that.
We do. We regulate over 8,000 entities in Pennsylvania, and that includes electric distribution companies, natural gas distribution companies, water companies, as you said, but also Ubers, Lyfts, taxi cabs, moving companies, any transportation for hire, whether it's people or goods, as well as pipelines, pipeline safety. We have exclusive jurisdiction over any pipeline that's an intrastate pipeline that's solely within Pennsylvania. If it goes beyond state boundaries, then it's a PHMSA regulated line.
Then it becomes federal at that point.
Yes,
I do want to talk about pipelines, but first let's talk a little bit, because this has been very much in the news, which is, the way I'll couch it is the reliability of electricity, making sure that families, businesses have enough electricity moving forward. Now the grid, which you can explain what the grid is managed by an organization called PJM, correct?
That's right. That's right.
You guys interact with PJM, I assume.
We absolutely do. So back in the mid-90s, Pennsylvania restructured our electric markets, and that's what allows our ratepayers to shop for their supplier of electricity. They can either choose default supplier through their local distribution company, PPL, PECO, First Energy companies, or they could choose a supplier of their choice. We've been doing that since the mid-90s. As a result, we at the PUC don't have direct regulatory oversight over generation. That's regulated by the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, or FERC. We simply regulate the distribution or the delivery of power to customers. Recently, as you said, PJM is our grid operator. It's in 13 states in the District of Columbia, so it goes as far far west as Chicago, as far north as New Jersey and Pennsylvania, and as far south as North Carolina. Okay. 65 million people in that grid. About 2 years ago, they issued what's called their 4R report, and it identified a potential shortfall in electric power and electric supply by 2030. A lot of this shortfall is driven by retirements of existing generation and no new generation coming in to replace it. So that's the challenge we have. PJM has made some changes to the way they operate. We are seeing some new generation come into the grid, which is good. Pennsylvania is a powerhouse in that grid. We are the largest exporter in the PJM market. It's a great place for the Commonwealth to be, and it's a place I hope we continue to be. But as you pointed out, what's of most importance is keeping the lights on, making sure we have enough supply to meet that demand. That demand surge is happening from electrification, whether it's in our transportation sector or other industrial sectors, or data center proliferation. We're seeing a lot of that.
Yes,
That's
a major one, I know, which has caused TMI to propose starting back up again.
Absolutely.
I know, and I know before we do a break here that we've had a lot of retirement of coal-fired. Pennsylvania's natural gas has become a tremendous powerhouse. But when we come back from break, I want to talk a little bit about some of the challenges that we face with that and some of the pushback we're getting. Let's talk about that when we return from break. We'll be back here in a moment.
This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is presented by the Pennsylvania Chamber of Business and Industry, the statewide voice of business, and by the Pennsylvania State Education Association, bringing the power of a great education to our schools, our students, and our communities. This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is brought to you by the Pennsylvania Highway Information Association, the go-to source to learn about transportation projects and issues. Please visit pahighwayinfo.org. And by the Pennsylvania Manufacturers Association. Business in Pennsylvania is our business.
Welcome back to Pennsylvania Newsmakers with my guest, Steve DeFrank, who chairs the Public Utility Commission. Just quickly, let's finish up on the electricity because I do want to get into some of the water side because you brought up some really good issues. And one of the things after deregulation, some of the utility companies now have proposed maybe reestablishing some of or having oversight over generation during their own generation, I guess. The PUC have a position on that?
We have not taken a position. That's a policy matter of the General Assembly, and it's an important policy matter, a lot of implications with it, and that's an issue that should be decided there.
And for 20 years, of course, you guys have had to, or Pennsylvania and the commission has had to deal with a mandate for utilities to sell X% of alternative energy. And of course, some of the other states where we could be sending our natural gas have pushed back on that, thinking, no, we've got wind, and some of those wind projects off the coast, say, of New Jersey have now, looks like they're not going to come to fruition. Are you guys concerned about that? Would you say to them, hey, look, we can help you because there is some pushback on natural gas production?
Well, as you know, we have plenty of natural gas in the Commonwealth. I serve as the at NARUC, National Association of Regulatory Utility Commissioners. I serve as the gas chair, the national gas chair. And that shows the importance of Pennsylvania is to the nation in terms of natural gas. We are seeing increased retirements of baseload generation, and it's being replaced by renewables or intermittent generation. We do need those renewables. Don't get me wrong, but replacement of baseload generation is key and critical because what's happening here in Pennsylvania with electrification is happening all over the country.
Absolutely. So let's move on to one of the other things the commission does, which is regulation of water. It seems like we're seeing more and more of some of the municipal authorities or even some smaller privately owned are now selling to, because there's a tremendous amount of investment required, to much larger companies. Would you agree with that from the PUC side, and what's your position on that?
No question about that. We are seeing regionalization occur, and as you said, it's private companies purchasing public systems, and it's public systems purchasing private companies. It's going both ways. I think what's driving this is compliance. Forever chemicals, PFAS, PFOA. Removal of those chemicals is very costly, and some of these smaller systems simply can't maintain those systems and be able to comply with removal of those forever chemicals. So what we're seeing is regionalization happening, and again, it's private to public, public to private. Both ways it's going, and I think economies of scale are coming into play, where larger organizations, whether it's a public authority, whether it's a private company, can do these remediation measures cheaper, quicker, and easier than some of these smaller companies that simply don't have the wherewithal of complying with that.
Now, a lot of times, though, what will happen is there will be some increase in cost, that consumers have seen for years. Oh, gee, this has been cheap, but now it's going up. The reality is, as you note, there's a lot of investment that's required to go into this, and unfortunately, and we went through it ourselves where we live, it happens. All of a sudden, in order to comply with these, if you want clean, safe drinking water, we're going to have to do that, correct? We're going to have to put that investment in.
There's no question about that. And when we're dealing with some of these smaller systems, particularly municipal systems, sometimes the rates you were paying was not covering your cost of service, because you may have had elected officials sitting in these boards that don't want to raise rates, and so they don't raise rates. And what happens, the system deteriorates, and then it gets to a point where you need a new treatment plan, or you need major upgrades to the system, and that's when we're seeing regionalization come into play, and larger organizations taking these smaller ones over and bringing those efficiencies to them.
Yeah. Now, there's so much more, and we're just about out of time. I would love, in fact, if you would, I'd love to have you come back and talk a bit, because what you guys are looking at is changing so significantly, whether it's telecoms going from landlines over to mobile, whether it's taxis now moving to Uber and Lyft. You guys have control over all that. So I'd love, if you would, to come back and talk about some of the challenges that PUC is facing with that. Chairman DeFrank, thank you for being on with us today. We'll be back here in a moment with our next guest.
This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is brought to you by Cross-State Credit Union Association. Credit unions, where people are worth more than money. To find a credit union that is right for you, go to ibelong.org. And by the Energy Association of Pennsylvania, Pennsylvania's energy information source. This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is brought to you by the Association of Pennsylvania State College and University Faculties, representing the faculty and coaches who are devoted to providing quality public higher education for Pennsylvania's college students.
Welcome back to Pennsylvania Newsmakers. My next guest is Pennsylvania State Treasurer Stacy Garrity. Treasurer Garrity, thanks for being with us here today.
Gene, it is always great to be with you and great to see you.
Great. Well, thank you for doing this. So let's talk a little bit about, you have, I think, what is a very interesting background. You now have, you were just reelected.
Correct.
In November with, I'll note, the highest vote total in Pennsylvania history, which we're going to touch on a little bit later.
Okay.
But you not only have that public service, you've got business experience and military experience as well. So talk a little bit about, you were U.S. Army, as I recall?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, United States Army Reserve, 30 years. Okay. And 3 deployments all to the Middle East. Okay. The last one was 2008, 2009. I was acting battalion commander at Camp Bucca in southern Iraq, where we had 7,000 detainees. Okay. About 225 detainees on death row. And we ran the SHU, which is the Special Housing Unit. Mm-hmm. And, excuse me. So I hit my mandatory retirement date in 2016. Had I not hit my mandatory retirement date, I would still be serving. I would have never ran for office because serving was and is the honor of my lifetime.
And you had a nickname while you were overseas, right?
Oh, you're going to bring that up.
Sure. Yes, we are. Yes, we are.
I did.
Okay. Which was?
You're going to make me say it?
Yeah, I'm going to make you say it.
Angel of the Desert.
Yes. Why was that?
It was because that was actually in the second deployment, 2003, 2004. And it was because I made sure the camp was safe. Okay. No detainee abuse, no escape attempts, and we brought in a lot of programs. So a lot of detainees were there because they were illiterate, so they couldn't provide for their families. So we taught, basic education, different skills. And it really, instead of letting detainees sit around and think about ways to escape and hurt soldiers, we try to keep them busy. Good.
See, that's why that's a great story. So one of the things your office is known for, maybe the top thing, right or wrong, is unclaimed property, which is property that's owned by Pennsylvanians and somehow finds its way to your office where it sits until they figure out how to get it, right?
That's right.
And you've got some incredible stuff and a lot of very valuable stuff that's in there.
We do. We have over $5 billion.
Billion?
Yes, billion with a B.
Billion with a B.
And that's despite hitting a one-year record of $274 million and a two-year record of $505 million. We still have $5 billion.
Wow. And you're still, and of course, you want people to come in and claim that because it's their property. It's Pennsylvania's property, right?
Exactly. I always say it doesn't belong to the state. It belongs to you. It's your money. Yes. So get it. And we have a brand new program, Pennsylvania Money Match, where for the first time ever, Treasury can proactively return unclaimed property back as long as it's under $500 in single owner. So just last week, about 44,000 checks hit notifying people, hey, Treasury's going to be sending you a check.
Okay.
It's your money, cash it.
Right.
And so mid-June, those checks will go out, and hopefully totaling about $10 million.
I know one of the things, and with your military background, I think this probably holds a particular significance for you. You have a large number of military medals as well.
We do. We've military decorations from every branch of service, every major conflict. We've given back just about 500 since I took office, including 12 Purple Hearts, 3 Bronze Stars, and the first time ever, we received a Gold Star medal. And so we had a ceremony last month in Schuylkill County, and it was the great niece of a private first class, Joseph Morrison, who died 10 days before the end of World War II, so 10 days before Armistice Day.
So Gold Star Medal, explain that was given to the mother of this soldier.
Yes, so it was given to the mother, and then the federal government had a program in 1933 where they basically they sent the mothers or the widowers over to see the gravesite. And so this was the eldest of 4 of her sons, and so we have a picture of her next to the White Cross in France.
Okay, we're going to take a break here. When we come back, we're going to talk about the other big program that you guys administer, which is the 529 plan.
Fantastic.
We'll be back here in a moment.
This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is brought to you by the Pennsylvania Medical Society. Inspired physicians committed to the good health of Pennsylvanians and the advancement of the practice of medicine. This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is brought to you by Pennsylvania American Water. We keep life flowing across the Keystone State.
Welcome back to Pennsylvania Newsmakers. My guest here is State Treasurer Stacy Garrity. So, Treasurer, the other big program we talked about, unclaimed property. The other one is 529 plans. So, tell people what a 529 plan is.
So it is a college and career savings plan. But, Gene, it's not just for four-year degrees. So it's for community college, technical schools, qualified apprenticeships, K through 12 tuition. So whatever a child or a grandchild's, post-secondary education plans are, a 529 will meet the need. It's incredibly flexible. And in fact, this month, because 529 is May 29th, 529 Day, so we have a big promotion for the month of May, where if you contribute $10 to a new or existing 529 plan, you are eligible to win 6 regional awards worth $5,529, which is enough to pay for 1 year at a community college.
And you mentioned something interesting, which is obviously you can do this for your child, your grandchild, but aunts, uncles, godparents, I guess anybody can set one up for anybody, right?
Absolutely. I just set one up for 2 of my nieces and my nephew.
There you go. There you go. And the interesting thing to me about this is with some recent changes, if let's say that your child, you have this for college, but they get a scholarship, this can be converted to a Roth.
It absolutely can. And so people always wonder, well, what if my child, elects to go into the military or do something different? Right. So you can roll it over, of course, to, another child, but worst comes to worst, help them save for retirement and roll it over to a Roth.
Absolutely. Are there any cautions you would offer to somebody looking to open up a Roth? Anything that you'd say, hey, watch this, be careful of this, or?
No, not with this plan. I mean, it's just, we're just trying to make sure that it's incredibly flexible and it's going to meet the needs. It is a fantastic program. I think you know this, but our plan is rated gold for 2 consecutive years now, making it one of the best plans in the entire nation. And one of the reasons is because we have lowered fees since I took office by $17 million.
Okay, wow. That's good for people who have set those up.
It is.
All good, all good. Another little interesting thing that I want to talk to you about. Earlier this year, you banned the Chinese AI platform DeepSeek from all devices issued by the Treasurer's office, correct? I believe that was how that could accomplish. Was this a preventative measure? Was there something that happened that caused you to do this? What prompted this?
Well, so, of course, I'm the fiscal watchdog for $170 billion, and we make every payment in the Commonwealth. So that means that we have, so much information. And so, it's so important that that information is protected. Gene, we get 200 million attempts on our firewall every single year, 200 million. And so DeepSeek.
Is that just the Treasurer's office?
Just the Treasurer's office. Just the Treasurer's office. So, we have to make sure that we protect all the agency information, over 70 agencies. And so DeepSeek, being owned by the CCP, we have to make sure that our PII doesn't get into the hands of bad actors. And so it was an easy decision.
CCP, the Chinese Communist Party.
Yes, Chinese Communist Party.
Okay. Are there other apps, et cetera, you're concerned about? Obviously, the one focused nationally has been TikTok. Is that another one you're concerned about?
Well, we banned TikTok 3 years ago.
Okay, so that's already been done.
That's been done. And that was, again, because the servers were in China. And so we have to make sure that there's no way that our, sensitive information can get in the hands of bad actors who are, always looking to get our information.
Are there other apps you're concerned about, or other ongoing concerns that you think you'd like to address next, or that maybe the state government itself should address?
So my cyber team looks at every single app, and we're being very methodical and careful with AI, because although it's a great tool, we have to make sure that it's deployed correctly. We are one of the very first agencies and the first treasuries to have a policy around AI.
Okay, interesting. So another point that was in the last couple of years has reemerged, and you pushed back hard on, was a strong push for the Treasurer's office to divest their interest in Israel. That is, take anything out of any of the investments that you have. And you pushed back hard on that.
I did. Israel is our greatest ally. I'm always going to stand with Israel. We have been invested in Israel bonds since the 80s, and 9 different treasurers, so 6 Democrats, 2 Republicans, 1 independent, have all invested in Israel bonds. So they pay an above market return. So they pay above Treasury, Treasury bonds. And, I'm always going to stand with Israel. And in fact, we're going to invest another $25 million. You're the first person that I'm telling this to in July.
And if you had done that, there would have been a fiscal impact on the Commonwealth and its citizens, correct? There's a fiscal impact of those divestment decisions.
Absolutely, because they're bonds, so we need to make sure they mature. And, they're investment grade. And, Israel, they're committed to, a capitalistic market. And so, to me, it just makes, it's a win-win. We're standing with our ally. We're getting an above-market return. And by the way, they have never defaulted or missed a payment.
Okay. So the question, I referred to this earlier, you just had your re-election, and you had the highest vote total of any person who's run for elected office in Pennsylvania, which, let's be honest, leads to the most obvious question. You are now in 3 years, will be out of this job. What are your next plans? And I know people are speculating about what that might be.
I know. So we're there are so many options, and so we're looking at all of them. But first of all, I am so honored to be the first treasurer in over 16 years to be from a rural county.
Okay.
And so, the first Republican, the first from a rural county in over 40 years, so let me correct that. And so it's really been my honor to serve hardworking Pennsylvanians, and so we'll see what comes next.
Thank you. I appreciate that, and I know we'll hear more.
Okay.
Thank you for joining us on PA Newsmakers. Thanks to my guest. We'll see you again next week. Thank you.